And I say aunthood is a gift. It's a gift for the children, often not only a gift of love, but also a gift of gifts. It's a gift for the parents who often need our support, and I can give you more detail on that. And of course, it's a gift for us, especially those of us who have children in our lives that we can exercise that maternal muscle with. Even again, to your point, if we're child free by choice, women, just because women don't want children, their own children, doesn't mean they don't love the children in their life.
Hello, Culminators, and welcome to today's show. Melanie Notkin is our guest. Melanie is America's aunt. I'm not sure if she's ever used that term, and if I'm the first, I'm going to let her have it for free. She writes about and talks about the idea of the unmarried woman of a certain age having a role in the lives of families and maximizing the stuff. And I want to understand it better. And we've followed each other on Twitter for a while, and I've enjoyed her contribution. So I said, hey, let's talk. If we're going to hang out, let's at least get an episode out of it. So Melanie, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much. I was actually hoping for French fries along with the conversation if we were going to get together, but we'll have to save that for another opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. You are, this is your website. Look at melanienotkin.com. Good thing about having a name like Melanie Notkin is that you got a pretty decent chance of getting your domain name.
Yes.
Pretty far along, into the history of that kind of stuff. Although I have roncoleman.com, which is an immensely more common name, but I'm an early adopter, of course.
Yes.
Melanie, I'm looking at your website and you do all kinds of stuff. Tell us about the otherhood concept. You've written it looks to me like more than one book.
2 books.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of them is.
So the first is Savvy Auntie, the ultimate guide for cool aunts, great aunts, godmothers, and all women who love kids. And it's based on the concept I launched back in 2008 for aunts, whether they're aunts by relation, sibling, or aunt by choice, to friends' kids or to a group of children in your life. I will correct you. It's not just for single women or never married women.
Right.
It's for all women.
Yes.
It's more about being childless than about.
Okay. Oh, okay. That is the thing.
Yes, that is the thing.
Taking your ability to be nurturing and loving and value adding potentially to a child and making it other children who are not your own offspring part of your life.
Correct. More women today are entering their 30s without having had a child than ever before. The majority of those
got to be true, doesn't it?
It is true. Yeah.
In the history of mankind, because there's more women than ever before, which is a good start.
Correct.
But historically, women got married pretty close to when they could start bearing children.
Correct.
In order to avoid starving to death. But then taking on the risk of dying by having children. That
is true too. And, the only time I could think, and I don't know the data on this, that maybe there was a blip in this sort of data is maybe after, World War I or something, as young men died in war. And so there were fewer men with whom women could have children. But that aside, not that that's not a big deal. Obviously, it's a huge deal. Today, women are having their first child later than ever. They're also marrying later than ever, to your point. But the majority of those women, like myself, are childless by circumstance. I always expected to have children. I had, at age 12, I bought a baby name book because I had imagined that I was going to have twin girls. There are no twins in my family. At least not then. And I liked alliteration. So first I was going for Bonnie and Buffy. Then that changed because what was I thinking? But I was determined I was going to have children. I even planned my wedding in our backyard. The white picket fence would have to be repainted a little bit. We take down the badminton net. but I could walk down those stairs down to the main area with my dad and get married. And here I am at 54. As we say, God plans. And, I mean, we plan, God laughs. So
Mantracht, Gott lacht.
there you go.
Actually, I think that I might not quite have that right. One of my kids corrected it. All right, but in any event, I get the point. Is that
You
yes,
get the
we
point.
think we've got it figured out, and we don't
Yeah.
necessarily have, especially with respect to our futures.
And not even figured out, just it wasn't even, it was just going to be. There was no plan. Although I did move to New York nearly 30 years ago from Montreal, expecting there'd be more Jewish guys here, which there are, just there are also more Jewish women. So, but again, more women are entering their 30s childless than women have babies in their 20s or earlier. And so we have this sort of, most women end up having children. So let's understand that. However, we're having them later. And meanwhile, we're having this longer, extended part of our life where we're childless. Some say child free. Those are women who choose not to have children. First of all, I'm not child free. I'm not childless by choice, but also I don't love the term. I find it a little offensive to children. But anyway, so we have this long.
You know what? It's not about anyway. It's a very big deal. You are because I think that listeners and viewers should understand, which is what I think I understand, is that you're not an advocate for childlessness.
No, not at all. Not at all. I very much wanted children, as do, again, about 80% of women who are childless by circumstance. They don't have a partner in their life with whom to have children. And I say partner because many women are acquiescing. I'll say acquiescing to living with her boyfriend instead of getting married. We have some commitment issues in America, actually in the West today. And I truly believe that women acquiesce to that so that she's that one step closer to him agreeing to finally have children. He's in somewhat of a commitment. So we're having this extended life period before we're having children. There is among younger children more of a more women. I don't have the data on this because it's still happening now. There's this trend of women choosing to be childless as if it were some sort of feminist flag that we might have seen in the mid to late 60s, which of course I don't think it's feminist not to want the things that is part of the human condition for women. But of course, not all women want children. And I champion the choice. Women who don't want children for whatever reason shouldn't have children they don't want. But again, there's this misnomer or this sort of myth that women over the age of 30 are all childless by choice. And again, most of us are not.
Okay, so we have clarified that, and that is a big deal. And it makes to me, as just an observer, I have no special qualifications to judge this, but it enables me to look at your project much more generously, because you're saying I think you're saying this is a valuable part of being a person and maybe even being a woman. And if you're childless, even if you're child free, you and another human being, or more than one, may and very well will very likely, I assume, benefit from being a person in a child's life.
No question. I say aunthood is a gift. It's a gift for the children, often not only a gift of love, but also a gift of gifts. It's a gift for the parents who often need our support, and I can give you more detail on that. And of course, it's a gift for us, especially those of us who have children in our lives that we can exercise that maternal muscle with. Even again, to your point, if we're child-free by choice, women, just because women don't want children, their own children, doesn't mean they don't love the children in their life. And again, it could be, some will say, well, I only have one sibling and he's only 23 and he doesn't have, not even married. But what I say is, if you've ever paid full price for a Gap baby, you're an aunt. You know, everybody, that's that woman, that those children in your life, that you just end up spoiling for whatever reason you
Well,
just
I'll
have a
tell you,
close connection
look,
with.
the good as an uncle, as
Mm-hmm.
well as a father,
Yes.
but I'm quite a bit more of an uncle than I am as a father numerically. The
Uh-huh.
great thing about unclehood is you can have all this warmth and affection, and you're related. If you're really literally an uncle, you're related to the parents.
Yes.
Uh, but then you don't have to put them to bed. And you go home when the party's over,
Yeah.
but you're talking about something potentially, in my case, being an uncle is an accident of of family history. But you're talking about taking affirmative steps, not by accident, but to have this happen. So
Yes.
let's not, the easy cases, if Melanie has brothers, Melanie has sisters, they have children, she's their aunt. Okay. But you're talking about something more affirmative than that. Tell me what that's about.
Well, so I mentioned that I had planned to have twin girls. I had this vision. And about 32 years later, or when I was 32 ish, I think,
Melanie, just let me
my,
stop you for a second. And I
sure.
do this with my guests. And if I were really super well prepared, I wouldn't have to stop them because I would have this really well ordered. But who is Melanie at this point? What have you been doing with yourself? Were you playing major league sports? I don't know what your background is before
Yeah.
you became professional Melanie.
So I grew up in Montreal, went to McGill University in East Asian Studies. I studied Japanese because I thought, well, Sony was, the apple of its day back then,
True.
and ended up actually in marketing, but in Jewish outreach actually, and moved to New York. Ended up at NJOP, what was then called National Jewish Outreach Program,
Sure.
helped develop Shabbat Across America and Read
Oh,
Hebrew
really?
America. Yeah. So I was very involved in marketing to Jews about the joys of Jewish life.
Okay.
And myself was more observant. And again, had moved to New York thinking, okay, I will, I worked in Jewish community because of visa issues with Canada, moving to the States. And I embraced all the things that one does to feel connected to community, hoping within that community I would find family, my own family. The years passed by. I got a green card. Ended up working in internet marketing for the New York Times, then for American Express, and eventually for L'Oreal USA. Was there for a number of years, and then decided, it was then in my late 30s, and I'd always been entrepreneurial, that if I weren't to have children, and then I was still very hopeful, that I wanted to have legacy, and decided to cut that story short to create a a platform for women who don't have children and love the children in their life. I could see just by looking at just basic census data that women, compared to 1976, when they first started looking at birth rates in America, fertility rates rather, that women in 1976, about 35% of women were childless in their fertile age. And now, at that point, when I launched in 2008, it was about 45%, and now it's about 50%. So women are having their first child later, and they're having fewer children. And some women are not having the children they always dreamed of. Most of those women are single. And so I launched Savvy Auntie. And I did actually try, I was referred to, America's auntie at one point, which I
Had to
of
be.
course totally embraced. And that's where the book Savvy Auntie came about. That's on my left, you're right. And that did very well. And I was doing TV and writing for other outlets. And then I started to write about the pain of being childless, because again, to my earlier point of women and men, everybody assumes that women after a certain age are childless by choice. And so I wrote very honestly, and with a lot of vulnerability for having to post in Psychology
Vulnerably. Yeah, that's a
with
good one.
vulnerably, right? It's hard to like
Let's
come
look
at.
that up.
No, no. So, and I wrote a piece called "The Truth About Childless Women," and that was the summer of 2011. That piece went viral. I ended up on CNN and Good Day New York, and it showed how most women want children, all the data support it, and my sincere story of that dream, slowly ebbing because of my age. And so there you go. And so I then started to write about that issue more and more. And that's what became my second book, this yellow one, Otherhood, Modern Women Finding a New Kind of Happiness. That's a reported memoir, meaning it's my voice narrating with a lot of my stories, but really talking to women about their stories, women who expected the love, marriage, and children our mothers had and our aunts had, but we'd also have the education and careers that they didn't have as much access to. And yet, among the women, we did everything we were supposed to do. And yet, among the most well educated, most financially independent women in America, many remain single and childless.
All right.
And that's what that book's about.
So that is, I think, the real challenge in this sort of formulation. Here's Otherhood. Because we've already established that you're not an advocate for Otherhood as an exclusive, but that's a great title. Was
Thank
that you?
Yes, it was.
That's great.
Thank you.
That is a very, very, very cool.
Thank you.
You're not an advocate for not being a mom. You wanted to be a mom. You had
very much
very specific motherhood plans. Didn't find the right guy at the right time.
Correct.
Despite being in this really, fertile Jewish outreach scene. You talk about the having it all kind of concept, right? You would have wanted to have been a mother as well as having have a career and the that sort of self fulfillment. But you probably know from having sat in on a lot of the Jewish outreach stuff and been involved in it, there is a very strong argument from traditional life, which is that not only can you really not have it all, but almost either as a woman or as a man, but that there has to be a sacrifice. In fact, if you're going to be a mom, you're going to be on perhaps bed rest. You're going to have children, even if you want to hand them off to someone else for all kinds of responsibility. You're not going to be on the same track for career or social advancement. Do you think that? But on the other hand, when you're single, like you can't say, "Well, I'm going to simulate not."
Well, what am I supposed? Yeah, I'm supposed to live with my 90-year-old dad and let him support me. Like what? Like I have to pay the rent. I wasn't prioritizing career.
Right.
And in fact, when I was moving to New York, my first interview was actually with UJA Federation, and I actually asked about maternity benefits. That's how much I assumed I was going to get married and have children. I was working in Jewish community again because, well, I'd have more flexibility to take off, Erev Yontiv, right? So, and cook, which I still do. I still, make Yontiv dinners for friends, etc. But I actually chose that lifestyle.
You still
New
live
York
in the city?
City,
You still
Upper
in the
West
city?
Side, yeah. Okay. And so it wasn't that I was prioritizing career. It was that we are, as part of civil society, we don't expect the government to subsidize our life or hope they won't have to subsidize our life. We have to have a job, and it was never about having it all. It was about reaching my potential, both as a human being who wanted to have children, of course, find love in advance of that, and other ways that I can contribute to the world. And that's why I started my own business with Savvy Auntie and then wrote these books and have been so honest and forthright about my own experience so that other women wouldn't feel alone. And those my writings are global. Like, people, I get letters from all over the world for women who feel very simpatico, who expected love, marriage, and motherhood. And
So how do you do it? How do you now? Again, I interrupted my own your ability to answer my own question. You're putting aside family happenstance, which I'm sure that this could apply to as well. But how does a person situated such as you are, and after all, you're in a strange city, what was once a strange city to you. I assume that the rest of your family's in or around Montreal.
Actually, no, my brother at the time was living in New Jersey, later moved into the city, now is back in New Jersey. Which, by the way, just to give you go back to that story for a second.
Oh, yeah.
So when I was about 32, my brother had twin girls.
Oh, gosh.
And then just, stick it to me one more time, and I'm being facetious. I love my nieces. He had a second set of twin girls. So I actually have, my brother, Kenner, has 6 children. They're young now. Some of them are young adults, including 2 sets of twin girls. So I did get my dream came true for my brother. But if it wasn't to me, and maybe I have maybe I am a little bit of a prophetess because I could see it.
Right. I mean, and it also seems, and it does seem as you could see it, and also in accordance with your thesis, you could live it.
Mm-hmm.
If you all right. So how do you do it? How do you do it without, first of all, weirding out the parents? Why does this lady want to be around here so much? What's the formula?
So first of all, parents would do well to embrace the childless aunts and uncles in their children's lives. And that is because in about 2016, there was an article, a study out of Wake Forest University that looked at the happiness gap between parents and non-parents in 20 nations. And the widest gap was in the United States. And the reason they say this happened, the researchers, is because the US is so individualistic. This is my family, this is how we do things, and I don't need help, and I can do it. And part of, again, the woman not only can have it all, she can do it all. And people who don't have children, well, they don't know anything. You don't have how many times have you heard politicians say of another politician who's childless, they're saying this about Tim Scott now because he doesn't have children. Well, he has no investment in the future, which is such an ugly thing to say to childless people. So, however, in societies but in societies where they are more community-based, they're more socialist or social, there's more social cohesion.
Socially.
Yeah. The happiness gap is much narrower. So for instance, in the US, when a mother or a dad is able to leave work early because their kid is sick or the school play, where the non-parent is the one who always has to pick up the slack, who doesn't get rewarded just for being a parent, even though it's about work. I remember Advertising Age had a big awards for moms in advertising, and I was like, what about the woman who picked up the slack when she was on maternity leave? What about the women who help make all of this happen so that the mom can have her ability to parent her child? And when parents recognize the contributions of the non-parent at work and also at home, the one who, yes, you said, of course, when it comes to changing the diaper, well, I used to have this rule, 6 months or solid food, whatever comes first. I stopped changing diapers, which I'm kidding because I didn't stop then.
That's your opening bit gambit.
Yeah, exactly. So I try, solid food, 6 months. So when parents embrace the non-parent, that's actually eases their stress. And the non-parent feels like they're contributions are appreciated. In fact, they begin to even see how they are contributing. They value themselves more. So that's one thing that parents, and I'm very fortunate that my brother and sister-in-law embraced me from my nephew, the first child. So, and as more children came, obviously, the aunt there who could play with the older children while mom could breastfeed the younger twin girls, that's very helpful. And they've always embraced how I can share my talents, my things that I enjoy, my passions, my worldview with my nephew and nieces. And they've always appreciated, and I have always told them how much I appreciate how much they embrace me. I mean, my nieces, they, go to, all girls schools. When they were very little, there were a lot of these mommy and me type events. And I was always invited. And I said to my niece, she was, I don't know, 7 or 8, Auntie, you have to come to our mommy and me event, whatever it was. And I said, but darling, I'm not your mommy. And she said, but you're like a mommy. And I realized I was the only aunt at all of these things because my sister-in-law understood my relationship with her son and daughters was so important to them, to their well-being. God forbid, a million times over, anything happens to my sister-in-law and or my brother, I'm here, So that's how they embrace me. And I am so grateful that they do that. And there's never any sort of sorrow or envy or anything when it's your family, generally speaking. So when, another set of twin girls, and I'm laughing now at this point of how funny it is. And there's just so much more to love. I am so exquisitely fortunate to be an aunt.
Okay, so here again, you've described the natural aunt, and you've also, reading between the lines, you're part of a more traditional community,
Mm-hmm.
as I am, where people have lots of children. Both of my married children are married to, I have all boys, 4 boys,
Mm-hmm.
including a set of twins. So
There you go.
and each of my married sons is married to women from pretty large families, at least,
Mm-hmm.
And what you're talking about is a no-brainer. I mean, part of this, I guess, this American individualism slash atomization, where every person becomes an island. They often, you're in New York City, people often say it's 8 million lonely people. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone's there, but there's not necessarily a lot of community. You have this, so there it occurs naturally. But
Mm-hmm.
what's your advice, or what's the formula for someone who isn't in that kind of community? And well, okay, if they're Jewish, you've been in Jewish outreach, and you'd like them to come to that community. But fine, all things being equal, though, generally speaking, someone wants this in her life, and she doesn't have married siblings, or she's not near married siblings.
Mm-hmm.
She would like to be a giver. She's not up for adopting. That's not what we're talking about here.
Right. Right.
What does she do to do it, like I said, without seeming strange?
Well, I mean, it really, so again, there's the whole concept of being an aunt by choice. And most women, especially in single communities like New York City, like LA, big cities where there are a lot of singles, friends tend to become each other's family. In fact, otherhood is dedicated to my friends, the family I choose. And I have several friends who don't have children, and their nephew and nieces may live far away, or they're older, they're adults now. So sort of that, it's a little different from being a 2-year-old to being a 25-year-old. That relationship doesn't mean it's not closer or different. It's just they're not little kids. So women tend to connect with their very close friends' children, and especially now we see more women choosing to have a child on her own later in life. She could be 40, and so she needs her friends' help. So there are so many ways for a woman to be an aunt, and there are so many aunts who are educators, coaches, tutors, um, eh, they healthcare workers, pediatricians. They find so many ways to be part of a child's life. So it's not just being, an aunt by relation. There's so many ways to exercise that.
So the point of your message is that they should look for those opportunities, and that they will
Sure.
benefit and grow from them.
Well, no question, but I don't even know that they have to look. I mean, this comes naturally, especially for that 80% of women who want children of their own. They're always, and again, those are child free. Women tend to have a maternal instinct and connect with children. And,
Are you allowed to
whether
say
they,
that?
I don't, what do you mean?
Well, women as opposed to men, as opposed to, in other words, are women psychologically and emotionally different from men? Is that really
Um,
what you? I
yes,
think
it is
so.
really what I'm saying. Yes, of course. That's what,
Of
yes.
course.
I mean, it is what it is, evolutionarily speaking. And of course, there are exceptions. And of course, there are women who are on it, they don't have that. And there are men who are much more caring and all of that. But in general, yes, we know. You were being facetious.
I was being facetious, yes.
Yes.
I guess but have you gotten any sort of pushback from the feminist, you know,
Mm.
world on your no.
No,
Wow.
no, no. And I'm very fortunate, and I haven't gotten pushback from moms either. And partly because I don't speak ill of anybody. It's not a competition. I'm not
Mhm.
saying, because it's better than, in fact, there are 9 principles of how to be a savvy auntie. And the number one is parents rule, that, it's not your child unless the welfare of the child is in danger. Right. Um, that's a different story. But otherwise, you're not the mom. It's not your decision. You don't take their kid to get their ears pierced at age 8 because the kid wants it and mom said no. Like,
Oh
you have
gosh.
to know the boundaries,
Well,
right?
that would be a very unhealthy approach to
Right.
things. Um, One of the things I think of people don't appreciate, and this is well established in Jewish sensibility, that the best way to develop a bond is to give.
Mm-hmm.
People think that if A gives B a gift, then B will like A better. Well, that is true, but A will like B immensely better. This is a concept I was first introduced to by Reb Noach Weinberg.
Mm-hmm.
Giving, once you give someone, you have a connection to them. You have made an investment in them.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone doesn't have the opportunity, and parents thing about being a parent is that you have ample opportunity to give.
Yes.
And so obviously there's this tremendous investment in them unless you're, psychologically unwell. Uh, People who don't have children don't have to miss out on this experience of being givers, and the spiritual and psychological uh, wash of good feelings that come from giving, not giving and announcing, or giving and signaling, or giving for your own benefit. You are giving for the other person's benefit, but incidentally or axiomatically, you become a receiver.
Absolutely. That's what I said earlier about aunthood being a gift. It's also a gift for the aunt because she's able to have that reciprocal connection with a child, not her own. The reason why Savvy Auntie, what sparked the idea was my nephew, who is my first nephew or niece. Um, he was just age 2, and I'd been coaching him literally from he was an hour old, fresh, very fresh baby. And I said to him
Fresh.
that very fresh. I said to him that I'm an auntie and I'm his family. And I kept saying, I'm your auntie, I'm your family, because I didn't want him to think I was a nanny, a fly by night caregiver, that I was his family, always there. Now, of course, he didn't, I mean, he's a smart kid, but he was only an hour old at the time, but I kept saying it. And, um, and he turned to me at just age 2 in front of the whole family. I keep calling them my in-laws, my brother's in-laws. So that everybody could witness it. And he said, "Auntie, we're family." And that meant the world to me, that he understood. He looked at me in the eyes like he got it. Like, I am never going to leave him, even though I'm not his mom. And that's why my little niece could say, "But you're like him, Mommy." And it's like another niece said to me on Mother's Day, actually, just when my book came out, 2011, she's 20 now. So you do the math. I don't know, she was 9. And I was there it was Sunday. I was there, it was Mother's Day. And she said, "Auntie, happy Mother's Day." And I said, "Thank you, honey, but I'm not a mommy." She said, "But you're like a mommy." And, those things make me feel so good, because it's not that they think I am their mommy. I'm not. But that they understand that they can trust me, and they can, I call it being a confidant. They can share things with me that maybe they don't feel like they want to share with their parents, even though thankfully it seems they have a very good relationship with their parents and open them with, etc. But, that bond is very powerful. And to your point, gosh, does that make me feel good? I mean, I launched a whole company based on what my nephew said, right? And those feelings can help women, especially those who want children. And of course, we didn't mention those women who have issues with fertility or challenges with their health and can't have babies. That they know that there is a connection, a spiritual, a physiological, I don't know what you want to call it. There is legacy there because of that love connection. And I'm very, very fortunate in that I have one niece who, much more attractive, beautiful, gorgeous girl, is my twin. I mean, she like, even my sister-in-law were like,
click. You connect.
Well, she looks like me. Like, she looks like I was one out with her and her twin sister. They were very young, and the woman at the pizza store said, "Oh, so is this your daughter and her friend?" So I have that too. But it's so wonderful to be able to see, if you are unable to have the children and therefore the legacy be one of Avram's countless stars, we can still see it both in terms of the way we feel, and if we're lucky, in the DNA of our nieces and nephews.
This is a very important point, is that legacy isn't only transmitted, and investments in the future of humanity are not only found through biological or genetic connections. Finally, you let something slip a minute ago.
Yes.
My wife is from New England.
Mm-hmm.
And she's lived with me in New Jersey for many years now. And I think she's probably gotten used to it, but she still to this day says aunt.
I say aunt too, but so many say auntie.
But
and my nephew needs to start saying auntie. So.
Well, but I mean, in the New York area, most people say aunt.
Yes.
And as my wife, she's not a person who goes around correcting people, but I'm sure she would agree that aunt is really the proper pronunciation of the word.
Actually, there's in Savvy Auntie, we actually show where in the map, who says what, where it comes from, why do some say aunt and aunt. Yeah. So I actually had expected to be called auntie. My mother was British. She was born in England and then lived in Canada. And
so she
even in my family in New York, they were the English ones, and they moved to New York. And so I always called them auntie, and I expect to be an auntie, but my New Jersey nephew and nieces call me auntie. And as they say, as long as you don't call me late for dinner, it's all okay.
Well, I'm glad we called you and asked you to come onto the show. Is there anything that we should tell people about besides the fact that your name, Melanie Notkin, you spell it like it sounds, is your
Right.
handle, and it's your website, and the website is a very
Well,
good
Savvy
one.
Auntie is my handle. SAVVY
Oh, and actually,
AUNTIE.
your handle on Twitter is Savvy Auntie,
Correct.
even though it reads as Melanie Notkin.
Yeah, they do that now. They changed it a while back. So, but on
Got it.
Instagram, etc., it's Savvy
There's
Auntie.
Savvy
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 Auntie.
Auntie, but never
Yes.
Savvy Auntie. That
Right.
that just would
That's
make no
that would
sense.
be weird.
But I don't even think an Englishman
Correct.
would say Savi. I mean, that would be a very pretentious accent. Melanie, thank
But I have a
oh,
big announcement. The 15th annual Auntie's Day or Auntie's Day it's always the fourth Sunday in July, and this year it's Sunday, July 23rd. It's a day like Mother's Day or Father's Day set aside to celebrate all the other mothers in a child's life.
okay, Melanie, thanks again.
Well, thank you, Ron. It was a pleasure to be here. Lovely to finally meet you
Same
in
here.
person.
That's right. And we are just across the river, so maybe you'll come over for Shabbos one time.
Oh, that'd be lovely. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good one.